in it too.
Hailey Dickert, Hailey Dickert.
Oh, there it is. Um, and then the date of the event on Sunday. So this will run Saturday and Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and your event is Sunday. So even as a radio show, it will run there. So we can talk about Saturday and Sunday in terms of this weekend.
Okay.
Okay.
We're all set.
Yep, we're set.
All right. And that's ready.
I don't have headphones. I don't know if you want me to use them to start. So much shorter than you can sit though. There we go. Thank you, sir.
I don't need them.
Nope.
Okay.
we only need them if we were taking callers because it's recorded.
Okay. No, we're good.
And I'll take them off once we get started too.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we're the ones that have encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because if it's happening on the Treasure Coast, you'll hear it on the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. In fact, here's your host right now, Sue Ellen Sanders.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm thrilled to have today someone who at age 28, correct, has accomplished something that I dream of my whole life. And we're going to talk to Hailey Dickert about her journey to becoming a published author. And the book just actually published this last week. And Hailey, you may know her as Hailey Rose Bruin because she is the daughter of Monique and Scott Bruin with Loudon Pools. And she went to school and grew up here. And you were born here as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so she is a hometown girl. And then she moved with her husband to Germany. So let's talk about your journey as an author. You know, you're born and raised here. You went to school in St. Lucie County. Have you always wanted to be an author?
So I wouldn't say that I've necessarily always wanted to be an author, but I think some part of me has always wanted to be a writer. Growing up, I wrote songs, I wrote music. I had a blog for quite a few years detailing my journey from moving from Florida abroad to Germany. And I've always kind of written things, whether it was songs or a blog or things like this. And yes, nothing really stuck. I did enjoy writing songs, but it wasn't something that I felt like was forever. And now that I've written a book, I finally feel that this is what I'm supposed to do.
Here it is.
So yes.
So and what's exciting is that you know, as you said, you've been a writer in some way, shape, or form your whole life, and you're also a fairly new mom. Your son is 2?
Yes, he just turned 2 in January.
And so you've had, I'm not going to say a little downtime, because I've seen your schedule. A lot of times you write after the baby's gone to bed.
Yes.
So you sleep less, but you write more. And The Sister Between Us is a book that you actually began when you were here in St. Lucie County for a period of time because your grandfather was sick.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about how it got started and what kind of book The Sister Between Us is and how you got into it.
Sure. So I actually started writing my book because last year my husband and I went on our honeymoon, and I had my Kindle with me. This is an e-reader, and I hadn't read in a very long time. Like occasionally here and there, I was a casual reader, and I started reading again. And before you know it, flash forward, I had read 10 books in a month. And as I said, always being a writer, I just kind of had this aha moment. I was sitting in my parents' living room and I thought to myself, I could do this. Like, I think that I have a story that I could tell. And I mean, the book has changed drastically from like that very initial idea that I did have. And as you said, I was in Fort Pierce a lot last year because my grandfather was sick. And we also lost quite a few family members last year. And I think that even as a writer, although it's fiction, the things in our lives that happen can also shape the stories that we write. And when you say, what kind of story is it? Well, on one side, it is a second chance romance between two people who just madly love each other, and they're childhood friends, and things happen that push them apart, and they are finding their way back to each other. And one key theme of the novel is grief. And this is also because this is what I was experiencing during the time that I wrote The Sister Between Us. And so for me, writing this novel was very therapeutic because I was able to express a lot of emotions that I was feeling at the time. And I know a lot of people have also reached out to me saying that they experienced similar things, and that the topic of grief within the novel was also something that sadly they
were able to relate
to.
So you talk about second chance romance, and that's a genre in itself.
Yes.
So there's romance, which is, everything that's got a story about people falling in love, no matter whether it's man, woman, old man, woman, young love, man and man, woman and woman. It's all romance, and it all goes in that whole big category, which is a best-selling category. And honestly, I used to think of romances as the Harlequin romances that have the books of the women with the old-fashioned dress and the guys with their shirts open to their waist. And that was my idea of what a romance novel was. And then I realized, and of course I wouldn't be caught dead reading one of them, especially with a cover like that. Then as I realized that the genre was just so wide open, I realized that, things like that romantic comedies were also a category. Second chance romance. What are some other subcategories, would you say?
Yes. So as you say, we have this romance genre, and that's so broad. And then we have what a lot of us in the book community would call tropes or micro tropes. These are those like subcategories.
Tell me what a trope means.
So
I mean, I know, but
yes. Yeah. So a trope would be these are those specific things that people love within each book. So for example, he falls harder. This would be a trope. Or sports romance. This would be a trope. Things like this. So they're kind of like sub genres within the story.
They're a type.
So like, let's say someone wants to read a romance, but they want to read not only a sports romance, but a hockey romance. So hockey romance is a trope. So as you said, within the genre of romance, we have all of these subcategories down to very specific things like cowboy romance or things like this. And as you said,
ski romance,
holiday novellas. And so, which is also great because, or like, like grief would be a trope or a theme. I don't like to really say trope, but that would be like a theme. And the great thing is, especially for people who love to read, they can find something exactly specific to the situation that they're in life. And I'm even in quite a few groups on Facebook where people will come and say, I was at the grocery store and I ran into a man that had tattoos all over his arm, and something like this, and can I have book recommendations? And people are sharing book recommendations of these very specific situations.
Yes.
And it's just very interesting to see like how it's evolved and how like even the internet is helping the book community to grow and things like this.
And you can find anything
Anything.
at all.
I've seen some very wild requests, and there's always people that say this is exactly the book you're looking for. And yes, it's just very interesting.
So your journey on the book, then you knew what general themes that you wanted to explore, and you said you were writing this book. Did you look to find an agent, or did you look? How did you decide you were going to publish? Tell us about the route of publication.
Yes. So, especially for those of you who don't know exactly the bookish way, there's self-publishing, which is what I have done, and then there's working with a literary agent to get professionally published with like Penguin or Simon and Schuster or these companies. But querying and getting an agent and getting with a publisher, it's a very long process. And there's a lot of competition. And for me, it is great if you don't have the budget to self-publish, because while I will say with, let's say, Kindle Direct Publishing is where 99% of people publish their novels. Amazon has made it very easy for people to publish their novels. You don't have to pay anything up front. Amazon, of course, just gets something in return when you sell your novels. So while there is not exactly a cost to hit publish, there are a lot of costs behind the scenes.
Of course, because you want a novel that looks good, a book that looks good, and so you have got to worry about proofreading, you've got to worry about typesetting, you've got to worry about the look in general, and let's talk just a little bit more about publication too, because one of the things about writers who want to be published is if you want to be published in what used to be the general way then they want somebody with experience.
Yes.
So I mean I could see how that's true, because if you're applying for a regular job, people are going to say, well,
show me your resume.
Yeah, show me your resume, show me your experience. So when you're a writer, your past books or your experience that you're listing, and if you don't have anything to show them, then to prove that you could do what you say you're going to do, it's easier for a publisher to say, well, so-and-so has already written 2 books, so they know how to get from start to finish, and they write the way, and we can see the type of thing they're writing. So self-publication is, I mean, just in that area alone, there's a lot of different ways you can do that too. But the thing about what you've done, Hailey, is you didn't just write and publish a book. There were a lot of things that went along with it.
Yes.
So what we're going to spend time talking about, which I think is fascinating, is how you made the contacts with other authors who helped you along the way, and other authors and ideas that you had for promotion. Because let's talk about some of the accolades that The Sister Between Us, that just published last week, has already received. You're on several, like, normal best-selling lists.
Yes. So within one day, I was in the Amazon top 100 in over 8 countries. And a big part of this, like you said, attributes to marketing and having people out there who were excited for the book to come out, who were willing to promote it and happy to promote it. And also, The Sister Between Us hit over 1 million page reads on Kindle Unlimited this week. This is a subscription service from Amazon that allows readers to read as many books as they want in a month, and authors get paid per page read.
Okay, so if people are reading the entire book, then that's going to be, I'm going to I know 387 page reads.
Yes.
So do you divide the million by 387 for people who've read the whole book
So
to get actual readers, or how does that work?
So for the people who've read Kindle Unlimited, they consider the ebook, it's a few pages different. It's 382 pages.
Yes, I knew you'd know.
Yes, 382 pages. And yes, you can divide the million, I think it's 1.1 million now, divided by 382 would be how many readers. And I think the last time I checked it was, I think around 3,000. I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Considering it just released.
Yes. It released April 4th. So within, I think it took about 3 weeks, and 3,000 readers, and that doesn't include the ebooks or the paperbacks. So it's definitely for a debut novel, overwhelming.
How did you prepare for this? I mean, what were some of the ideas you used from the very beginning? And let's talk too about how other people, maybe some people you haven't even met except for through online and through social media, have helped.
So I guess I would say rewind to October. Actually, August, I had started my Instagram, and my book wasn't done yet, but I had decided I was going to start my social media as I was continuing to write my book, because if you wait until your book is released to start, you're preaching to an empty audience.
Right.
So I was also reading a lot. So I started my author Instagram, and I was posting not only teasers about my book, but also about other books I was reading. And also one major thing would be consistency. I've posted every single day on Instagram for over 6 months. And
it doesn't always have to be a new post. You could
sometimes I
post,
repurpose content, use the same quotes but just change the background. Or sometimes I have even used the same exact video and a different sound or things like that.
Just to freshen it up.
Yes, just to freshen it up a little bit. And I mean, my main social media that I have found to be successful was Instagram. My novel is considered, we have the romance and then we have those subgenres. So mine would be considered the new adult genre, which is mostly targeting ages 18 to 30. And of course, that doesn't mean no one else can read it, but the age of the characters is 18 and then 26.
People like to read about themselves.
Yes.
They not necessarily
the stage
themselves,
of life that they're in.
The stage of life that they're in, very much so.
So, and as we said, it's a second chance romance, which means that they have a second opportunity to be in love or fall back in love. And so it details their journey from 18 all the way to 26. And I'm 28, so I found it easier to put myself in this mindset of these characters. And for me, selling a novel that's for new adult ages 18 to 30, the majority of people ages 18 to 30 are using Instagram, TikTok, and I mean, of course, you still have Facebook and YouTube, and even Pinterest can be a very great place to promote. But because of the specific age group that I'm targeting, Instagram has been very successful. And the main thing is consistency, posting every day. And although you don't have to share your face, there are actually quite a few authors who use pen names and they don't show their face for one reason or another, and they are successful. What I found worked best is just to come on, share stories, be authentically yourself. And this is something that people tend to connect with, and it helps you to grow faster. And as you said, to find those people who are willing to support you, and, you support them, they support you. And one of my favorite things that I always say is that authors aren't competition, we're coworkers. And if we would all think that way, we would all get a lot farther, because readers, yes, of course, you have those people who read 1-2 books a year, and that's great for them, but they're probably going to Target or Walmart and picking up those traditionally published books, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for indie authors, it's a lot harder to get out there. And if you work together, I can share with my following, if you liked my book, here's another indie author you might be interested in. And if you work together, this is really a great way to help spread the message. And it's like anything, you know, if you help me, I can help you. And just that authenticity, I think, is something that is really helpful in that market.
And your reels that you create, you use pictures. Where do you get the pictures, and how do you decide in your head what your characters are going to look like?
Yes. So one thing that I do as I'm writing my books is I create Pinterest boards, and I'm like pinning inspiration.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm pinning inspiration of my characters and like what I think they look like. And the more that the story comes to fruition, you know, when you really define those eye colors and hair colors, and being able to like see images of real people like really helps you visualize it. And it's funny because actually, if you would say like the fan cast of my book would be, there's a girl, her name is Abigail Cohen. She's a actress and a redhead. And the guy, his name is Danny Griffin, would be Jake. And they're actually dating in real life, which is just a coincidence.
Yeah.
And so, of course, there's like tons of pictures of them. And
so did you have to ask their permission or pay for their pictures? Or are they in the public?
Most
domain?
of the images are in the public domain, yes. So this is a, I would say, a tricky subject, because there's a lot of people that would say you should only use stock photos, and then there's a lot of people who say that there's images out there that are public domain. I'm not a legal expert. I only know what I have done so far. So I would suggest that everyone do their own research and choose how they want to move along.
So which came first, your description of them or the pictures that you found of these real people?
So for I'm currently writing a second novel, Return Policy, and for the second book, I will say I started the Pinterest boards before I started writing the characters. However, Sophia, my female main character from my second book, was in The Sister Between Us, so I had already a little bit of a mental picture.
She was the little sister.
Yeah,
but this is her own story.
Yes, this will be her own story. But for The Sister Between Us, because it was my first novel, and I had no idea what I was doing, just to be honest. When I started writing The Sister Between Us, I had never written a book before. I didn't know the process. I've read a lot of books, and I've learned everything like over the past year. But when I started, I just started. And I started writing, and then I can't tell you like the moment that I decided her hair will be red or his hair will be blonde for their book. I truly can't remember. I think there was just a day that I thought, okay, I wanted her to look, you know, it's usually she has dark hair or blonde hair or the standard colors, and of course there are also book characters with red hair, but I feel like it's a little more unique. So this was just something I wanted her to be a little bit more unique, because like we say with these reels, my reels from them stand out a little bit more because there are not so many characters having red hair. So this was just something, when you think about marketing and branding, like things that are going to set your characters apart from other characters. And of course, there are plenty others out there with red hair, but
that was just one little thing.
Yes. Yeah. And like going back to the self-publishing route and like picking the tropes and things like this. One important thing is, yes, you want to write the story that you want to write, but I have a bachelor's in business administration. So one thing for me was, if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write to market. And that was a big thing that the book communities talk about regarding making money, is writing to your market and seeing what people want to read.
So let's travel back just a little bit farther than when you started creating the Instagram to go with the book you were writing, to the book communities. Did you start to contact other people in book communities to find out, you thought, I'm going to start this, I'm going to do this, and with your background in business administration, like you said, you were writing not just a story, but a story that would be marketable.
So one thing is, Facebook was something, they have groups there's a lot of groups on Facebook, and there's a lot of writing groups on Facebook. I can share the names of them.
Sure, yeah.
So one of the very first ones is called Moms Who Write. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a group of thousands of women who are also moms who love to write stories or are authors. It's a very supportive community, and women just go there to ask questions, ask for support, ask for beta readers. These are people who read your manuscript when you're in the process of writing it and give you feedback. So this was one group that was really helpful. And there was a few others, the Romance Beta Readers Collective, back to those beta readers, a place specifically for romance to find people to read your work. The self-publishing support group, and obviously these were more questions related to the business side of things. And then the last one is specifically on the business side. There's one called 20 Books to 50K, and it's also exactly what it sounds like. It's all the business side of things, writing 20 books to get you to like an average, I think it's even an average monthly income of $50,000 a month.
Wow.
Which is really
that would be
great. Would be great, yes. So, I mean, of course, it doesn't happen like that, but they do teach you, how to write to market and all of these small things that you can do to improve your revenue streams. Because for people who like to write, I mean, of course, our goal would be for it to be our full-time career and not just a hobby. So these groups were really, really helpful, especially in the beginning. I had so many questions. Even when making my cover, I asked people, what did they think? Did they have any feedback? And just sometimes a lot of people think that being an author or a writer is a solo profession. You think of like having the typewriter and being away and not speaking to anybody, but actually I'm not sure if it's always been this way, but at least these days it's actually a profession where you have to speak to other people and get other people's feedback. And I even like have a team to help get your books to like that best level, and hearing the experiences of other writers and other authors and learning from their mistakes so you don't repeat them, or getting suggestions for books that help you to write your books. Like Save the Cat Writes a Novel is a very helpful book to help learn how to structure your book. And
what's that name of that?
It's called Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody.
Okay.
And it is very helpful for structuring the build up, the climax, the come down, everything that has to do with writing your novel in a way that people will continuously be drawn in. And all of these groups with all of these real people greatly contributed to the excitement and the learnings and things like that. So this was something that was very helpful.
Well, you were on this self-publishing journey. Another local woman, well, she's not local anymore. She lives in Texas. Ashley Winstead is Melissa Winstead's daughter. Melissa still lives here. And she's a frequent guest on the radio show because, like me, she's in public relations and fundraising. And so she works for different nonprofits. But Ashley is about 10 years older than you, and she's published by a large publishing house. And she went from having one book published like a year and a half ago to all of a sudden now she has, I think, 6 of them. And she, like I said, she lives in Texas, but she's coming in for a book signing next month. And when she published her first book, her mother had a little launch party for her, and we thought, oh, this is so sweet. I'll buy the book just because I'm supporting, Ashley and her mom, Melissa. And I'm sure a lot of people thought that about you, too. But what I found with Ashley's books is they were great. They were wonderful. And then I was so excited even to see them in the library. I felt like, my God, that's, having a book published, that's one thing, but it's in the library. Yes. And I tell you this story because there are other people who take different routes to publishing. And another friend of mine that's a local writer, Ellen Gillette, and she wrote romance novels under a pen name, and then just recently came out and said that Ellen Gillette, is actually Emily Sharp, because she wrote the old-fashioned romance novels. So I picked up this book from your mom. I'd actually purchased one, but you were back in the country because Hailey lives in Germany now. Where in Germany do you live?
Near Frankfurt.
Yeah, okay. With her husband and her baby boy, 2-year-old boy. And I knew she was coming in, and I wanted to be able to read the book before I had the radio show, just so I wasn't just saying, oh, I'm sure the book is good. So I knew. And so I had several people at my house when I went and picked up the book. And then so we were all like reading the first couple pages together. And we looked at each other and went, this is good.
Thank you.
The writing is good. Your English teachers would be so proud of you because writing a book is not just about the story. Writing a book, you have to have the story, but you also know how to tell the story. And there is nothing more disheartening than when you're writing a book and then in chapter 2, the character is different than chapter 1 and you don't understand the connection from one to another. So you've got your transitions, you've got your proper grammar, you have to have a book with no typos, you have to have a continuing story. There's so much, and you can't do that by yourself. I mean, I know people who are writers who even when they write a 2 or 3 page article, they ask somebody else to look at it because it's really hard to pick up your own mistakes.
Yes.
You knew what came out of your head, what came onto your computer or your pen, and so you knew what you were trying to say, so you might not have said it in the most clear way. But this is wonderful, Hailey.
Thank you.
And I waited till we were halfway through the show. I was honestly, I was afraid that I was going to have to sit there in the room with you and go, yeah, good job. It's really, I'm so proud of you. You got a book done. But you have a great story. You have true to life characters. You have everything looks perfectly done. And you got a great cover too.
Thank you.
And then you have the other side of it, the promotion that goes with it. So let's go back to October now. You're writing the book. Did you put an outline together once you started writing the book, or did you just sit and write?
So, as I said, actually, I've even started my 3rd novel, but to start at the first book, I did not have an outline. I winged it. It was a side passion thing that I wasn't sure was going to go anywhere. I didn't tell anyone I was writing a book for months. Actually, my grandfather was someone who always supported my writing, and he was one of the first people that I actually told I was writing a book. And of course, he was so ecstatic. And it was one of those things that I was like, well, once I tell people, like, it's real, there's no way to back away from that. So I didn't have an outline as I was writing, but about, I would say, a quarter of the way through, I had this aha moment that was, if I don't create an outline, I'm not going to get very far, because then you've written a whole book and then you find these massive plot holes, and it's a lot harder to change these plot holes throughout the whole book than in a small outline. So in my first novel, I did an outline halfway through, and now onto my 3rd novel, the strategy that I found works the best is actually to write a brief outline of your story and then to go in and make a more detailed outline. And then before even starting the manuscript, my final step is to make a chapter by chapter outline. And I do dual point of view books. So even choosing whose point of view each chapter is going to be, and then I start writing the manuscript. And this is because, let's say, for example, your original plan is to write a football romance, and then after you've created the whole outline, you decide, oh, I'd prefer it to be a hockey romance instead. There's all these small little details, writing about the field instead of the ice, or the skates instead of the cleats, and it's so much easier to quickly update these things in an outline than in an entire manuscript.
Well, and The Sister Between Us is a soccer story too.
Yes.
Are the characters in any of your books real, or are there parts of real people in them?
I wouldn't say that there's any like one specific person that has made up any of my characters, but I think that I would be lying to say that no small parts of the people that I know have made it into the book.
I know a good friend of yours is a flight attendant.
Yes.
And one of the characters becomes a flight attendant.
Yes. So actually she was even a beta reader for me because I wanted to make sure that the flight attendant things
Stuff
were
was-
correct.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know if it was intentional or coincidental. It wasn't like I thought I want to put her in my novel, but it was like her life did give inspiration to parts of this. And
So shout out to Megan
shout out to
LaShawn.
Megan LaShawn. So I would say, you know, not that there's like that Leah and Jake are based off like any one specific person, but I would say like there's pieces of them that are from people in
Well,
my
I know
life.
when you first started promoting in October, and you were talking about your sister and brother, Jake and Chloe, and I went, wait a minute, I have a Jake and Chloe. We talked about that. You know, you just thought in your head that the names Jake
Yes.
and Chloe kind of went together as a brother and sister. But your Jake is nothing at all.
I
like
know.
my Jake.
And you know, I mean, it's also very possible that there was this subconscious part of me when I was thinking about brother, sister, Jake, that Chloe popped up because
Yeah.
although I don't, you know, I did do drama with Jake and I didn't know Chloe very well, but I knew of them
Yeah,
as
and
siblings.
so one name kind of went
it's
together.
possible. I don't really know where the names came from, and I think it's you know, it's even like reading or things in your life, they make it into your stories, whether consciously or subconsciously. And like there's a scene, it's at the very beginning, it's not really a spoiler. There's a scene of the kids taking a bath in the Florida Keys, like when they're very young. And when we had, what was it, Hurricane Jean, or like, I don't know.
Gene and Francis,
Yes.
the 2004
So
ones,
back
yeah.
then,
Yeah, that
you know,
would be
there was
little
no AC. My dad sent me and my mom and our neighbor and her kids down to the Keys. I mean, we were all girls, and there was a huge jetted bathtub in the room, and they made us a bubble bath, and like this is just like
So that was a memory
that was a
popped up
memory
for
that
you.
popped up. And
Yeah.
although like, I mean, it is different in the book, there's differences, like that was something from my life, like a memory that inspired something. And I think that while a lot of things are of course fictional, there's also these like beautiful memories, or sometimes even bad memories that you have that you utilize in your writing for one way or another.
And as you traveled through the story, did you go back? I mean, was it difficult chapter by chapter when you went back to try to change things? Was it difficult to do that editing piece, or did you go to beta readers right away as you had chapters completed?
So basically, the process, and maybe I'll talk about the process that works rather than the process I necessarily did right away. But what I found is the best is, so writing your first draft, and don't edit as you write, because
Okay.
this really, really hinders the process.
Good.
Just try to keep moving forward and finish that first draft, because the only thing a first draft has to do is exist. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be publishable. It literally just has to be there, because you can't edit a blank page.
Right.
So as long as you consistently move forward, you can finally finish this draft, and it's not going to be good. I don't know. I know a lot of authors, and I don't know a single author that has said that their first draft was
Publishable. Yeah.
because the thing is, this is actually one of my favorite times of a writer, is when you can just let your imagination run, and you don't need to rein anything in. You don't need to find the perfect way to say anything. Just write the story that's coming and make it all the way to the end. And then once you finish that first draft, give yourself a couple days or a week or a few weeks. You know, people, they say take a break, and then go back in with a red marker and mark it up. And then this is where you can really edit and improve things. And basically I edit until I feel that I've gotten to the story to a place that I can't make it any better. And then this is when I bring in my beta readers.
Okay.
Or you can also hire a developmental editor. And this is someone who comes in and talks about the plot of your book. And if there's any plot holes, if there's good character growth, not line editing to exactly how sentences are said, but just making sure that your actual story is in a good position, and giving you feedback, because then after that, then you can go in and say, how should I specifically say each sentence? So that's kind of the process that I found works best, is writing that first draft, editing that first draft, and getting it into a place that I know that it's not perfect, but it's good enough to bring those beta readers in or that developmental editor in.
One of the things that I've struggled with as I retired last year and tried to start to write was both point of view and also how much time to spend writing in detail at one place in time, and how to move the story along. So if you're telling the story, how deep do you go in it, and then how do you get to the next year? How do you get to something else without looking like you have big plot holes?
I mean, one big thing is editing. So for The Sister Between Us, actually, I think at one point it was over 100,000 words, and it's around 95,000 now. But this is from adding and cutting and adding and cutting. And there were a lot of scenes that I wrote during my first draft that were eventually taken out because they didn't move the plot.
Did it break your heart to take them out?
Broke my heart.
They're like your little babies.
Yes,
in
there was a
those
scene
words.
that I wrote it and I rewrote it 3 times. I changed the location of the scene to a different room, rewrote it again, and then in the very end we scrapped it. And I mean, I had spent probably a week, like at least, of time on this, and it is painful. But
do you save it somewhere? Maybe you could use
I do.
that scene
I do have it
else?
somewhere.
Yeah.
Like there are scenes, like there, for example, there used to be a scene from Will, the dad from The Sister Between Us. There was like a point of view scene from his perspective. But the thing is, in editing, you have to take each part of the story and ask yourself, why is it there? Does it move the plot? Does it contribute to the romantic relationship, or is it simply just something nice and fluffy? And it is very hard to cut scenes, and especially as an author, because you spend a lot of time, and we can always argue, but it's there for this specific reason. But as I said, it comes down to, is it relevant for the plot? Because if you have too many things in your story that aren't plot relevant, people get bored because they're also curious, what is this leading up to? And yes, this is something that's definitely very hard.
Well, there's some authors that use a lot of imagery in their books, and so they might spend a lot of time describing the scene and describing the trees and describing the house. And there are a lot of authors, and I hate to say it, but I'm one of them, that unless a story has good dialogue, I'm not moving along fast enough. Sometimes I'll read a book if it's a good book, but sometimes I just skip that stuff. And if there's too much that I have to skip, then I put the book down and pick up another one.
So we would say these are like skim paragraphs. So for example, back to beta reading. One thing that helped me a lot as a writer was beta reading for other authors, reading their work when they're also in that stage to get feedback. And as you said, I had a author friend who, she was very descriptive heavy, and she had a scene where they were all having dinner, and I think she took almost an entire page describing what the room looked like. And, you understand you're trying to set the scene, but one thing, as you said, for me, I was kind of skimming over it. And I think if I, as a beta reader, am skimming, the readers are definitely going to. So like my feedback was to only point out the things that are very relevant. Like, do we need to know that there are crystal chandeliers? Is it something relevant? Is it going to fall later onto the table? Is it something relevant to the story? So again, with these descriptors, are they things that are moving the plot along, or is it only to help people visualize? And if it's only to help people visualize, can you sprinkle those things in throughout the chapter rather than having one full paragraph only describing the scene?
Yeah, that people are likely to skip along. Before we go any further, I want to point out that, as I said, Hailey no longer lives in Florida. As a matter of fact, she doesn't live in the country anymore. She lives in Germany. And so the book is, available online and through Amazon. And you could Google it, The Sister Between Us, Hailey Dickert, or you can also come out to the Sailfish Brewery on Sunday, which is the show is running this weekend. It's this Sunday, and it's at 2 to 4,
4 to 6,
4 to 6, 4 to 6, and so she's going to be having a book signing. So if you have the book, you can get it. So. And you'll have a few books available too.
Yes, so I am encouraging people to use Amazon and order a book, only because I will have limited copies available. But we will have copies available as well if they're not able to get it.
And
in
people
time.
could also order it.
Yes,
and then can they order a signed copy still if you're not?
I'm not selling signed
Yeah.
copies anymore, only because, as you mentioned, I'm not living in the country, and I wanted to make sure that I could get them all the ones that were already purchased, signed, and sent out before I left.
Difficult to manage.
Yes,
it
it's so that's the great thing about publishing with Amazon is they fulfill everything. And of course, if I'm doing the signed copies, I am signing, mailing, sending. So that's one of the great things about Amazon taking over.
So you recommend Amazon as a self-publishing thing, and again, that way no one gets stuck with 5,000 copies of something because it's publishing on demand.
Yes, it's called Kindle Direct Publishing, and it's print on demand. So whenever someone orders a copy of my book, Amazon prints it and ships it out. So I don't have to pay upfront for any stocking fees or anything like this. And as you said, I don't have to order 5,000 copies and have them sitting in my garage hoping that people will buy them. So of course we do order author copies. I have a couple of hundred author copies at home right now for the book signings and the signed copies. But as far as like the general mass market, we don't have to take over any of that. Of course, some people choose to, but personally for me, it works well to allow Amazon to handle those things.
You to do what you're best at, which is writing and publicizing your novel. So the book is about the romance between Jake and Leah, and then Chloe is she's actually the sister between us, between the two of them. And so the storyline, and we don't want to spoil anything, so we're not going to talk any details about it, is that, of course, when we first meet Chloe and Leah, they're best friends, and Jake is Chloe's brother. And Jake plays soccer. So you write about, some of the things that have to do with, him and his soccer team. And you write about the relationship between Chloe and Leah, too. So you have, like, the best friends that you can write about. And so that's the kind of thing that people can relate to. Like you said, people like to read about other people their age, but also they might like, for example, with me, I like to read about people that are my children's age. And I love a coming of age story, which is, a trope of its own, a whole category of its own. Are there any other details that people should know about the book before they get it?
Can you elaborate?
Oh, no. I just mean, well, for example, that some of you, if people follow you on Instagram, and you have Hailey Dickert, author, and it's Dickert, author, on Instagram and also on Facebook, so you could look it up. You'll see some quotes from the book. I know you said the quotes were spicy.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So the book itself is spicy, and I didn't understand at first what
that
spicy
means.
meant.
So, and as I said, I'm like in this new adult area, and I've also only learned what I have found on Instagram or TikTok, and the term that in the book community for open door romance they like to use is spicy, and they even use chili peppers to rate how spicy it is, and this would be regarding the physical relationship between the characters, the more graphic part. And yeah, so this just means, so for example, in my novel, basically what makes The Sister Between Us new adult and not young adult is the fact that there are open door romance scenes, and that means, I think everybody knows what fade to black means. So instead of when things are getting heated, it fading to black, it's open, the door is open, and you are reading what is happening between them.
But you don't have, and so I knew this from your quotes going in, and so I really expected something a lot spicier, actually. And there's really only a few really spicy scenes, and they advance the plot.
Yes.
They add to the plot. So nothing that, taking a step back for a minute, when I was a teenager, the book The Godfather came out, and my mom, I was a preteen, and she actually taped the pages together
that you couldn't
that she
read.
Didn't want me to read. So, I mean, it was very easy. All I had to do was get another copy of the book and look for where those type pages were. This is not that type of book. It's not. It is descriptive as part of the plot. So again, we have about 4 more minutes left in the show. This went really quick.
Yes.
And you've given us a lot of great information. The book signing is Sunday night, and that's April 30th, right?
April 30th
from 4 to 6 at Sailfish Brewing Company, and that's 102 North 2nd Street. If you haven't been there before, you can just stop by and meet Hailey or check out the book. You could look at the book on Amazon. You can Google the book. You could follow Hailey on Instagram because, as you said, you have another book that's already in publication, and then you're writing a 3rd book.
Yes. So my second novel is called Return Policy, and I will actually be delivering that to my copy editor next Wednesday. After I leave here, I'm actually going to Sailfish to continue editing that novel. And yes, it will release June 23rd, and it is based off the younger sister of Jake from The Sister Between Us, and it is the first novel in my university series, Crystal Bay University. And as you mentioned, I'm writing the 3rd book, and this will be the 2nd book in the university series as well.
So the University Bay series, is the university based on a Florida university?
So Crystal Bay University is, I guess you would say it's based on the University of Central Florida partially, except for the fact that it's near the water, because I went to the University of Central Florida.
So you just moved it to make it
right. So because the fictional town of Longwood is on the West Coast, so I just had the university not be too far from there.
Oh, that's great.